Good morning. Good morning, cubies and nibbies. This is Sunshine. I am Sunshine. This is the ABCube method for solving Rubik's Cubes. I'm ABCube tutor. And that right there, Formula A and Formula B are all you need to know to solve every complexity Rubik's type cube. That's an n by n by n cube. It works on... Now, where did I put my 3 by 9? It works on every complexity of Rubik's Cubes because the Formula A is 4 moves, Formula B is 8 moves, and A brings a piece to the top, B moves 3 pieces around, and that's all you need to do to solve every type of Rubik's Cube. Why are you hissing? My kitty cat just hissed. So yeah, good morning. It works on every size cube. It also works on minxes, like this. There's the difference between a cube and a minx as far as ABCube method goes is that for the ABCube method there's no order of operations, and it's meaning that you can do the inside out if you want to, you can do corners in, which is how I do it, you can do row by row, doesn't matter because you're always only moving 3 pieces, so you don't have to worry about what kind of residual effects you're having for pieces that you may or may not have already set. So, and so with the cube, you may get a parity. Parity is where there's always 3 pieces to move, if there's any pieces to move. There's 3 or more. If it looks like there's 2, that's called a parity. This is what one of those looks like, because this piece wants to be this piece. And all the rest of the cube's pieces appear to be correct. And they appear to be correct because you can have pieces in one space. But whenever there's 2 pieces and only 2 pieces, like these two, or across from each other, or side by side, it is caused by the center aisle, that center row slice that touches that parity is a quarter turn off. And so if you get a parity, all you have to do is make a quarter turn in either direction of the slice that touches the parity, and that parity has now dissolved, and you can set the edge pieces as you normally would, because now instead of 2 pieces being out, there's 3 or more, and those you know how to fix. So a parity is a lie, single quarter turn undoes it. Everything else can be done with A and B. And you don't have to memorize which columns to use. You just have to pick a piece that wants to move and let that piece dictates which pieces where the pieces want to be. So yesterday I did finish the edges, the corners. I know words. The corners of this 4 and this 5. So the corners are correct to each other. And on a 2 by 2, that means it's done. And on everything else, what that does is it dictates what color each face is going to be. So I'm going to work on the edge pieces next. I'm going to place them in between the corner pieces, because the corner pieces are going to stay where they are. So for yellow and white, hold the cube so that yellow and white are left and right, and look for a piece in the middle that wants to move to the outside. Here is a piece, yellow, holding a cube, so yellow and white sides are left and right. Here is a white piece. Okay, so A brings a piece to the top, B moves 3 pieces around, so this piece wants to move to the outside. So I move the corners together so that they match the front color of the cube I want to use. This is the one I've marked it so your eyes can follow what my eyes are following. So this piece wants to move to the side. It wants to move to the white side, not the yellow side, as dictated by the corners. So this piece wants to move here. 3 pieces are going to move. One of them is this piece. One of them is the piece that's in the spot where it wants to be. And the third piece is this one that's going to move forward. So top row, 2 columns. The first column is where it's going to land, and the second column is where it begins. So I don't have to memorize which columns move which pieces. I just have to pick a piece and apply B to it. So Formula B, I move it away, I move my piece away from the action. I move the first up, put it back into where it was, and then second up, and then I reverse down, and this piece has moved and these ones have as well. So instead of trying to pair up my edges, like, oh, here's a red and yellow, where's the other red and yellow, and how can I put those red and yellows together? That's a waste of time for me. So I just find, okay, here's a red and yellow. I'm just going to place it where it belongs, and when I find the other red and yellow, I'll place it where it belongs, so it doesn't matter. So instead of placing them together and then placing them where they need to be, that seems to be 2 steps. So instead, I mean, it's still 2 steps, but I place one, then I place the other, and I don't have to worry about the search time for finding where the pieces are. So corners match the front. It's going the yellow direction, which is this way. So first row is where it's going to land, second row is where it begins. So away, up, in, up, away, down, in, down. And this piece, the red and yellow, is between the red and yellow and something corners. And I hold the cube so yellow and white are left and right, and I keep doing that for as long as there's a yellow or a white in my center area, meaning anything between the two outside columns. So I'm going to treat this as one because they're together. Bring the corners to match the front. It's going the yellow direction. So away, up, in, up, away, down, in, down. Okay? And I keep doing that till my yellow and whites are out, and then I check to see whether the opposite edges, the yellow and white edges, are done. If they are, also move on. If they're not, then a piece is misplaced, like this one is not in the center, but it needs to be in the center. So I would throw a garbage piece, any piece, into this spot, which would move it out to the middle where I can place it. So corners first, and then opposite edges, and then I just simply rotate the cube and work on the side edges as the exact same way. So, good morning. How many people do I have? I see a couple of new faces here. Anyone want to say hi to me? So this is I published this online in 2020. So it's I believe it's the newest method out there, newest original method out there, and it's like I said, it works on every complexity Rubik's Cube. So when you learn the ABCube method, you've learned how to solve every cube and not just the 3x3. So back when the 3x3 was new in the 80s, everyone learned the 3x3, and then when the 4x4 came along, they're like, oh, there's things we can't do with this that we did with the other one. And so we had to, the cubing community, not me, I wasn't, came up with ways to, reduction method. Here, do these things to make it look like a 3x3 and then solve it like a 3x3. So what meant is that every new piece that came out, you were building on what came before. And I wanted to, people were going in the speed direction, and when I came up with this method, which, like I said, was just a few years ago, I went in the opposite direction. I went in for simplicity, the easiest way to teach, the easiest way to learn, and I think I did it. Especially when you realize that A and B solves everything. I am listed on Wikipedia for the Professor's Cube as one of the solutions for the 5x5 because it's a standalone solution. It doesn't rely on, treat it like a 3x3 reduction method. So, corners then edges. If you're doing, the 1 row, 2 columns is formula B, and if it's the outside columns, it moves the corners. If it's outside and inside column, it moves edges, and if it's 2 inside columns, it moves the center. For example, up, slide up, reverse, down, set the top, and it looks like these 2 pieces changed, but they didn't. These 3 pieces changed. 2 of them are white, so you couldn't tell that it's 3. But so you can't ever have a parity on the edges because there's always going to be 3 pieces to move if there's any. Saturday is usually my day to just play. So anyone wants to talk to me, tell me what your favorite method is, tell me how fast you are, because you've got me left in the dust. I know I'm not a speed cuber. My time for a 3x3 averages about about a minute and a half, solidly about a minute and a half. But that's down from 3 minutes in the 1980s, so progress. All right, how does ABCube work for non-cube things? Here is an example of the minxes. I got a bigger one so you can see what everything does. What does formula? Formula A will bring a piece to the top or twist it around as it's there, and I just morph the cube in my mind. So this would be the bottom row, and this would be the right column, and I can twist this piece around using formula A. Up, down, in, up, down, in, up, down, in, up, down, in, up. Let's say I wanted the pink to be on top. So I'm going to leave this, but I have to keep going because I still have to finish out the rest of my formula A pattern, because multiple of 6 times gets back to where you start, so you don't mess up the bottom. So I'm going to slide the top and continue my formula A, twisting this cube out, down, in, up, out, down, in, up, and multiples of 6. Leave the rest of the cube untouched. So set the top. So I twisted these 2 corners a little bit, you can tell. So formula A was used to twist corners, and now I'm going to do formula B moves 3 pieces around. I'm going to move these 3 corners. I'm going to use the outside column so I can move these corners around. Okay, so this cube will go here, this cube will go here, this cube will go there. So top row, outside columns. Slide up, slide up, slide down, and again, only the 3 pieces I wanted to move moved. And these ones, I'm going to use formula A to twist them again, because they've already twisted. So this cube wants to twist, and this cube wants to twist, so I have them both on the top layer. I'm going to start with this one. Out, down, in, up, out, down, in, up, and keep going until it's the way I want it. And then pause and slide the top to give me another piece to finish my formula A routine on. We're out, down, in, up, and when it gets to a multiple of 6, the rest of the cube is as it was before. Set the top and keep going. So what does formula B do? Formula B, you can't move it, you can't go opposite across the divider line, but formula B moves 3 pieces. And this piece you can see moved here, and this piece you can see moved here. So these 3 pieces move if I use this row and this row. Top row, this outside column, first column, second column. Up, up, down, down. As I said, the outside row and an inner column, outside column, inner column moves edges around. One more time, we'll get these right. Up, up, down, down, and so outside and inside column, it works the edges, and here I've got 2 inner columns, okay, inside and inside columns. So I'm going to line it up, okay. So first up, slide to a separate column, second up, reverse, down, reverse, down, set the top as needed. And so that's how the formula A and B work on the minxes. There is a difference between the cubes in that you can't get a parity. I tried to give myself a parity, and it just because of the differences of the shapes, the parity doesn't stick. But there is an order of operations, because if one of the columns that I'm using is the inner column, then it changes more than just the inside columns. It affects the edges as well. outsides as well. So the order of operations for the minx is to do the star part of the minx first, and then the other corners can be done with just the formula B. But we want to, if we do the stars, these pieces first, these ones, they mess up other pieces. They affect more than just the 3 pieces. Let me demonstrate. Slide up, slide. Second up is the middle column. Slide down, slide down. And that should have just been these 3 pieces, but it affected the edges as well. So I set the star parts before I work with the other ones, because this one will just have to place it again. So again, up, up, down, down, and one more to place these 3. And what it does is it placed these 3 edges, these corners as edges as well. So there's an order of operation on the minxes where you do set the stars first, so that you're not displacing pieces you already placed. And that's the ABCube method. Oh, someone said hello. Sorry, I was so busy. Hello, how are you? How is your day? How is your winter? I'm not a I've gotten old and I'm not a fan of cold like I used to be. Alright, so anybody else new here? Who just found me recently? Who doesn't know me? And who has a favorite scramble? Who has what's your favorite method for solving the cubes? And is there anybody here who likes to I never really got into the speed aspect of it back in the 80s when the racing side of it, back in the 80s when the cube was first. I did watch the first world record, yeah. It was a national record, it wasn't world record back then. But I watched the first Rubik's Cube competition on TV live as it happened, and that was very exciting to me because I thought I was really cool. I could do it in under 5 minutes. I thought I was really great. And then I watched everyone like sub a minute, and I'm like, my eyes just glazed over. And when Jeffrey Varasano, this 16, 17-year-old kid, made it in 23.4 something seconds, I took my cube, I looked at it, I'm like, that's not for me, I can't do that, and I put my cube down. Didn't touch it for a month, I was so upset. But then I picked it up again and kept playing. But I wasn't fast, but I could teach. Your favorite method is CFOP, since you speed solve. Okay. I have these cheat sheets for CFOP that I bought. I have these cheat sheets that I bought for CFOP. No, it's F2L. Is it CFOP? No, this is F2L. This is not CFOP. Yeah. Anyway, where did I? It's not CFOP. It's F2L, POL, OL. So this is the FTL. Oh, F2L is part of CFOP. Okay, it is part of CFOP. I don't know things. Part of the speeding community, but on the fringe. I got these. I think I got these from SpeedCube. The Cubicle. The Cubicle is where I got these from. And I got them to demonstrate the difference between my method and their method. In that Formula A, right here we go, brings a selected cube to the top. So I do this row, this column brings this piece, switches these pieces around, And on the center, it moves the center, it gives you boxes. So formula A is used to do these things. Formula B is used to switch 3 corners if it's the outside columns, switch 3 edges if it's the outside and inside, and switch 3 centers if it's the 2 inside columns. And so this was to compare how this is. I don't know, can you even read these things? Every one of these is a different set, and so I went for the simplicity when I went for my direction, and I have successfully taught everyone who's ever wanted to learn it, except for my sister, who's stubborn. Nope, too hard for me, can't do it. My brain doesn't work that way. I'm like, okay, well, if you ever want to learn. But when I teach it, inside of 2 hours, I can teach this method to a complete non-cuber. So if you have non-cuber friends who just want the secret, they don't want to try to speed cube, they just want to know how to be able to solve the cube, this is the secret. And some very fast solvers do a thing called ZBLL, where they finish the first 2 layers, F2L, and then they have a cross at the top. ZBL has around 500 algorithms, by the way. I have heard that speed solvers have an average of in the hundreds of algorithms that they have to learn. And then, so not only do you have to learn the algorithm, but you have to remember which algorithm does which thing, and you have to remember which order to do which algorithm, because if you do the algorithm is going to mess, if the corner algorithm might mess up the edges, the edge algorithm might mess up the corners. You have to remember which order to do it, and that is how I solved the cube. I did not. Where's my book? The method that I used, that I learned back in the 80s, I went to the book that happened to be at my neighborhood 7-Eleven was The Simple Solution to Rubik's Cubes, and it was by Robert Norris, I think. I don't remember. And so I bought that book, and with that in my cube, I just memorized the whole book. And then at school, or walking down the street, people would have cubes because everyone had a cube, but you couldn't solve it unless you were. Also, ZBL algorithms are executed from different angles, so even if you do the right algorithm, you have to memorize where to do it from as well, pretty hard. So yeah, that's my hat. I tip my hat to speed solvers. Like I said, my best is about 1.5 minutes for the 3x3. But my average time for teaching the cube is 1.5 hours. So, that's my thing. That's my flex. That's my flex. So, yeah. How fast are you? Can I ask? The guy who sold me this computer, but when I bought it so I could stream, he knew if he found out I was doing it to teach Rubik's Cube, he goes, "Oh, how fast are you?" His time is 11 seconds. So, but the cubes nowadays are a lot. I mean, you can just like think a turn, and it happens. You know, the cubes back then were a lot clunkier, and it really took 2 hands to make a turn. You couldn't just there were no finger tricks back then. So, oh yeah, okay. So, line it up, slide second up, and then reverse down. And the reason why you can't get parities on the center cubes is because visually, this cube could be correct in this spot, or this spot, or this spot, or this spot. So that with the 3x3, every cube has a correct place to be in. So that's how you get the 43 point something quintillion, whatever things. But because this piece can be correct here, or here, or here, or here, it doesn't have to be in its correct spot mechanically. It just has to be in its correct spot visually. Which is why standardly cubists don't like picture cubes, because then we have to pay attention to where the pieces go. Your average time is 8.5 seconds. Wow. And so how long, I'm going to ask you how long you've been cubing. to have gotten. How long did it take you to get sub a minute, and then how long did it take you to get down to sub 10? Because my fingers just don't move that fast. And if as I'm watching people cube, when the cube twists are faster than my eye can follow, then it's just magic to me. It stops being cubing and just becomes magic to me. So do you do the ZBLL or just that? Are you aspiring to that someday? Anyone else want to join the chat? I'm just here to play. This is cubists are cool, and I just want to hang out with you guys. So, wow. I'm just so impressed. So yeah, back when in the 80s when I was a teenager, I would, I carried my cube everywhere, and strangers would stop me on the street. Hey, did you take it apart and put it back together again, or did you peel the stickers off? And I'm like, no, I solved it. They're, no, you didn't. Nobody can solve the cube. And they'd take my cube and twist it from me and give it back to me. And they're like, you'll never figure out what I did. Thinking that I had to find out what they did and then exactly undo reverse of what they've done in order to solve the cube. So they're like, I'm going to twist it really good. You're never going to figure it out. It's like, it's not how it works, dude. But so at school, everyone had a cube they couldn't solve, and when I could solve the cube, they'd go, ooh, can you teach me? And I'm like, sure. And so I taught the method that I knew, which was similar to what the beginner's method is nowadays. Like I said, it's the simple solution to Rubik's Cube. And so I would say, okay, so this wants to go here, so move this, and then this, and then this. And they'd say, okay. And so while they were doing that, someone else put their cube in. What do I do? And I'm like, okay, do this, and this, and this. And they're like, okay. And so I would, I got to where, I wasn't diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I was ADHD. So I was bullied a lot because I was weird. But eventually I had this cloud of people, and I was teaching, everyone at the same time, because I just, your cube does this, and your cube does this, and your cube does this. And then it was like, will you teach my friend too? And it was like, will you teach my friend's friend? And I'm like, sure. And so it was fun for me. It was just really cool to have people be able to solve it, to think that they can go from I can't to, oh, that wasn't so hard. It's just really a kick in the serotonin for me. So, and then just like, I didn't notice until a couple days later in retrospect, but one day the bullies just stopped bullying me. And then about 3 days later, the main bully came up to me with a cube in their hand and said, will you teach me? They had to stop bullying me so they could ask me to teach them the cube. Because I could teach it, and the people that I taught couldn't teach it, but I could teach it. So that was, being able to cube was literally how I survived mentally my high school years. So that's a fun story. How did I come up with my method? Did I actively try to come up with a new method, or did it happen on accident? I actively tried to. I hear it a little bit by accident and a little bit by actively tried, because the accident happened and I'm like, I wonder if I can, kind of thing. So I was trying to learn a larger cube, and I was doing everyone else, build on what you know and see how far it gets you, and then what do you do next? Build on what you know. And you can read this on my wiki site. My wiki site, it talks about how I got into cubing and stuff like that. But so for the final steps, because I'd figured out how to do the edges, corners and edges, but the final steps for me was trying to figure out how to do the centers. And so I would watch. I'd find people. I found there was something missing on most tutorials for the cube. is that they end up being, it's like, here, I'm going to show you how to do it. And they take a cube and they scramble it, and then they walk you through step by step what they're doing to solve that particular scramble. But if your cube doesn't happen to look like their cube, it doesn't really work. And so I'd like get to the point where they were doing what I wanted to do, and then I'd like watch that over and over again, trying to follow. And a lot of times they're just, now I'm going to move this piece over here, and then they go to the, I'm like, wait, you didn't explain it. So I was trying to find how to do the last steps of this, how to get the last steps of the thing, and I found one that showed me, and it was, it's just a commutator. It's just a commutator. It's how everyone does the last step for the edges, if the centers, if they haven't done the centers correctly, you do a commutator. And so I wrote the commutator down on paper, and then I turned it into arrows so I could follow what was happening, because I'm visual, and it takes my brain a second to translate that R and L prime are parallels, and then you have to look at each face and do the clockwise, counterclockwise thing for each face. So being ADHD or autistic, I don't know what I am. I haven't been diagnosed. Doesn't matter. But the algorithms have always been difficult for me. It's been a memorization, but it's been more muscle memory than being able to understand it. So I drew it out on arrows on my piece of paper, and then so I'm like, okay, so this is what it looks like, and it looked like that. Okay, well, it looked like that. So top and it was but it was with like 4 lines instead of 2, because I was trying to keep track of which arrows I was doing. So anyway, so I said, okay, I now understand what this algorithm does. I understand that this is going to move my centerpiece around, and it's going to do it this way. I got that. I understood it. So I understood what later became known as Formula B. First it was Formula 2. So, okay, I understand. But what happens, I know what that does on a 4x4, but what happens if I do it on a 2x2? If I do that method on a 2x2, what happens? And so I tried it, I did it, and said, okay, what happened? Well, what happened was, okay, these 3 corners moved around. And, and doing it again, moved them around, but the other direction. So 1 was clockwise and 2 was counterclockwise. I'm like, now wait a minute. Now my head snapped. It said, okay, I already know these 7 algorithms for moving corners. I know that I have this one that moves them clockwise, this one that moves them counterclockwise, this one that swaps the edges, this one that swaps these 2. I had like 7 or 8 algorithms memorized, and I'm like, well, I can throw all of those away and just use this. I'm like, oh, wow, that's fewer algorithms I have to learn. What happens if I do it on a 3x3? And I figured out on a 3x3, oh, that moves edges. But it's the same pattern. It's still the slide up, slide down, slide down. So I'm like, it's still the same pattern. So I'm like, oh, okay. So this formula works on corners and edges and centers. Do I need anything else? Can I do this with just this? And actually, you can, but it's incredibly difficult. So I incorporated Formula A for bringing pieces to the top and for twisting pieces around, because you can do it, but there's so much brain work to figure out how to get it to line up in the correct position. I couldn't do it. So I had Formula B, and I threw in Formula A. So I had 2 formulas. I'm like, okay, so can I do it? Can I do it? And so I would take my 5x5, and I'm like, okay, I do this. Okay, that worked. I do and I'm like, and then it's like, oh, I recognize this pattern. All I got to do is, and I'm like, no, wait a minute. If I do that shortcut, I have to write that shortcut down in my method. Do I want to write that shortcut down in my method? I don't think I do. So, okay, is there a way for me to do it with just my A and B? And I figured out, come on, I have a 3x3 somewhere. I'm still unpacking. I moved. here's a 3x3. It's my Lego one. Doesn't matter. So I figured out. I'm like, okay. So, and I got really detailed into here. So it's like, okay, so this one will move this piece here. But if I have to move this piece here, and so I'm like, do I have to write down the mirror of the move as well? I don't know. And so instead of moving this piece here, I went over here and did B twice to move it forward and then into the correct space. So I'm like, which I narrowed down to including the mirrors of B, which does it. But I'm like, oh, I wonder if I can do this. So then it was a challenge. It's like, can I solve my entire cube with just the A and B? And I could. And then it's like, can I solve my 5x5 with just A and B? And I could. And so then I was like, then it took me several months to do it. And then it took me I would find someone who doesn't know the cube, and I'd say, here, I need your help. Here's my cube, here's my book. Pretend I'm not here, tell me where it's confusing. Tell me where my method doesn't make sense to you. And they'd say, what did you mean right here? And I'm like, so I'd take it back and I'd rewrite the book, rewrite the manuscript, and then, I have hard copies around here somewhere because I'd print it off at the library. Find someone else because they've been tainted. Here's a cube, here's my method. Tell me where it gets confusing. And after 5 years, it's like, nope, this is pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, I can do it. Thanks. So then I tried to get. I'm like, oh, I need to publish my book. And I actually turned out to be. It was Page Publishing had called me, somewhere. I don't know why. It was a random call, but I'm like, actually, I do have a manuscript I'm writing. They're like, really? Can we publish it for you when you're done? I'm like, well, da 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 da. And I talked. He's like, oh, he's a grandfather. He's like, is Rubik's Cube still a popular thing? I didn't that die out? I'm like, oh no, I guarantee you, Rubik's Cubes are still a very popular thing. So he went home and he talked to his grandson. Are Rubik's Cubes still a thing? Oh, Grandpa, you have no idea. So he called me back and said, yeah, Rubik's Cubes are still a thing, and we'd like to publish your book, so let us know when you're done. So when I was finally done, I called him back, and I'm like, I'm done. They're like, great, give us $5,000. I'm like, that's not how it's supposed to work. They just wanted to help me self-publish, and I don't want to self-publish. I want my book in physical, tangible shape in my hand, but I know cubing, and I don't want to have to try to, I want this put out the right way. I want it in bookstores. I want it, advertised for Christmas or whatever. So I want to find an agent to help me with that. So that is the next logical step to get this out there. But in the meantime, so I tried to find an agent. And they're like, well, who are you? Why would someone look for a book by you? Why are you an expert in this? And I'm like, well, it's new, it's easy. And there are still books being published on solving the Rubik's Cube. And I'm like, everyone can just go to YouTube and, nobody needs me. And so I took my manuscript and I spent the next 5 years, few months, I rewrote it into from the 5x5 perspective. Instead of, here's a 3x3, and by the way, the 4x4 is more, and then you can do this, and it works on all of them, because I kept running into a mental break in mental blockage in people's mind. I teach them the 3x3, and I say, the 4x4 is the same way, and they're going, no, I just wanted the 3x3. That's the original. I don't need to learn all of them, because they think that it's going to be more things to learn. I'm like, you already know it. So I stopped teaching the 3x3 and started only teaching the 5x5. They're like, I'd have a cube. Can you really solve that? I can teach you to solve it. Oh, I don't know. I've tried. My brother tried to teach me. Like, come over to my house. We'll try. And so I started teaching just the 5x5 and then I would start teach all of them at the same time. It's like, okay, do the corners here, and then like, okay, great, that's awesome. Now do the corners on this one. Okay, now do the corners on this one. Okay, now scramble it and do it again. And I made them get like the first hour is just doing the corners. It's A and B does the corners, and then it's time for them to go home. And I say, now you already know everything you need for everything. Here's a 5x5 to practice on. Come back in a week, and if you change which columns you're using, different things happen. Play with it. And so they'd come back and they'd have a question And if it was a 3x3, the question was how to switch the last two of them were in the right place, we need to be switched. So how to do the double edge flip, and I would say and then if it was a large cube, they had a parity, and so I'd spend 10 minutes explaining parity to them, and then we'd play with the cube some more, and they would leave with a cube, whatever their choice of a cube, because if you don't have a cube in your hand, you're going to forget it. So, but inside of 2 1 hour sessions was all I ever needed to teach anybody, and then they could do all of the cubes. It works on my 3x3x9 with Eden, which is fun. That's another story. So yeah, it was a challenge. I needed to teach myself the 5x5, the last step, and then I let that last step be everything. So, but I wanted to try the with Eden. I'm like, I'm smart, I can do this. And I got it, and I tried, and I could not figure it out. And so I went to YouTube tutorials again, and watched a different tutorial every day and tried to understand it. And the closest I got to being understandable was, this algorithm is going to do these things. It's going to do this to the corners, and it's going to do this to these edges. So hold your cube that will be advantageous. Do this pattern and then reset it to how it was, and then look to see what to do next. And I'm like, I have bit off more than I can chew. I cannot do this. And so after a month, I said, wait a minute, what happens? So I took my 7x3, and I said, I'm going to pretend that the yellow and white are banded, and I cannot move them as quarter turns because I can't turn it that way. So what happens? So to move with that pretend in my head, I used my formula B, and the only change I had to make was, instead of 1/4 turn, because then you can't go up, every horizontal was 2/4 turns instead. So then I took my 7x and said, okay, so formula B, top, first up, second up, first down, second down, what did it do? And by seeing what it did, then I was able to, overnight, I had mastered the 3x9. And so the only difference between the 3x9 and the other banded cubes is you have to do 2 rows horizontal instead of 2 twists horizontal instead of 1 twist horizontal, and it works. So I was very happy. And then one of my chat followers, one of my Twitch followers, asked me to try, or suggested that I might find the minxes interesting. So I bought a bunch of minxes. And I'm like, I got to the last layer, and where I realized that working on the tips messed up the other pieces that I'd already done. And I'm like, oh, I can't do it. And so, but then I tried doing those first, and then and it worked. So the AB method works on minxes as well. If you have a favorite puzzle you would like me to try my method on, let me know. Other than that, this has been this feels like a good stopping place. If you haven't followed me, if you're new here and haven't followed me, why not? I'm nice, I'm fun. Follow me. Cool story. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I'm still hoping to find an agent, because I wanted to, I got it in my head that this would be a really good For Dummies book. You know, the For Dummies books, spreadsheets for dummies, Excel for dummies, And so I'm like, this would be really cool. So I went to the For Dummies pages, and I searched the Rubik's Cube. They didn't have one. I'm like, awesome. So this is back when I was still writing my manuscript, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to be the one. And I kept, the next time I searched, they're like, here's Rubik's Cube for Dummies. I'm like, oh, they found my search, and they went out and got someone to do it. And so now I've just lost my chance. And I was so bummed. Oh man, I was so bummed. So then I got a sample chapter of the Rubik's Cube for Dummies book. You can do that on your Kindle. You get a sample chapter. And it's not even self-contained. On the chapter that I downloaded, it says, go to YouTube, type in this search string, and watch the video, and then continue. I'm like, no. So I kept working on my book, and the next time I searched for Rubik's Cube for Dummies, it was not there. So either someone had used the For Dummies label without permission and got stopped, or the For Dummies people realized that did not represent their brand well enough, and they dropped them. I don't know which it is. But there is currently not a Rubik's Cube for Dummies, and I'm not going to search for it because then I'll lose my chance. I want to be able to be that. I think that would be fun. All right, so I'm going to go. I'm here every weekday. I usually do, theoretically, I break down my method and do like corners on Monday and opposite edges on Tuesday and side edges on Wednesday, and etc. But I usually just end up doing whatever I feel like it. But I love to chat more than I love to monologue, so do come and chat with me, be my friend. And I like to teach more than I like to demonstrate. So I am set up to actually teach in real time. And I have done that over Zoom, or over Twitch, but I also have Zoom set up so I can be teaching up to 3 to 4 people at the same time over Zoom. I just capture the Zoom with my Twitch, and I can teach brand new people. So if you have any non-cuber friends who want to learn, I can do that. So bring me your friends if you want to. Come back and visit me. I'm here every weekday morning, unless I'm playing grandma, which I don't always have advanced notice for. Sometimes I have to go drive down and babysit. But that's only, my daughter-in-law is a pianist, and she's practicing for a Christmas recital with little kids, so she's just like needing me more and more. But that goes away at Christmas. So I'm here weekday mornings and Friday afternoons, and then Saturday mornings. So thank you for letting me be part of your background as you get ready for your day, and I will be back tomorrow. You guys go have fun.